Welcome back. My next guest is Nestor Aparicio. Nestor, welcome in.
Dennis, happy back to football weekend, right?
Can't wait. Should be a great crowd at the stadium Sunday, and I hope they introduce the defense. That way, the crowd gets a cheer on the Roquan Smith. I think it'll be an electric atmosphere if they play it right.
I used to wonder, did you ever go to Colts games when you were a kid?
Of course they did. We had season
Yeah,
tickets.
my
Absolutely.
dad would always wonder during the week, are they going to introduce the offense or the defense this week? Simonetti had a big game last weekend in
Oh,
Buffalo. They need to
Ed
do the
Simonini,
defense.
the great Ed Simonini, right? And now look at the franchise. They introduced Jeff Saturday as a coach a week ago, but that's another story for another day. So the Ravens have a
Hey,
game
you're still
coming up.
hung up with that, aren't you? You won't let that go, will
I
you?
just think it's horrible. I just do. I just think it's terrible. It just is. It just baffles me that he would. We'll see. I mean, he's got assistants, so I don't know. Maybe Ursay's right and the rest of us are wrong. But yeah, you're on that staff as an assistant coach. You've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years. Here comes this guy that was sitting on this couch 2 weeks ago drinking beer, and now he's your boss. I don't know about that.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm just saying you can't let go of the Ursay thing. That's
Well,
all.
just because you and I talk about leadership, professionalism, business, etc., right? And to me, it just blows my mind that he would do something like that. So again, they beat a bad organization, a bad team in the Raiders. Now they're going to play the Eagles. So we'll see what happens. But
I
then you,
requested a credential for this week. That's how bad I wanted to go to the game.
that's wild. Well, yeah, I hear you. And then you have great stories. You see Ron Rivera in the locker room saying to his players that his mother would have been proud. His mother, of course, passed away, God rest her soul, 2 weeks ago from cancer. And you see some good things in the NFL as well. So, look, it's a mixed bag, right? That's why we tune in every Sunday.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, sitting around last weekend I think we spent 15 hours on the couch. I mean, we started with the Munich game where we sent Niels to the game, and that was just a beautiful thing. And then obviously watched that Buffalo Minnesota game, which was incredible, right? So the league speaks for itself.
Sure.
It's largesse, as well as the dark side of the league, right? And whatever that dark side of the league would be. I mean, this week I wound up doing an hour with a legal insider named Dan Wallach, Wallach Legal. If you follow him, he's great on all things legal. I mean, this time last year it was the St. Louis Civic situation suing Kroenke, right?
Right.
This year he's all over the Dan Snyder thing. So the inside of the Dan Snyder thing's interesting because Schefter said on Monday, this is going to happen quick. I don't know. I don't
Maybe.
think Dan Snyder making that kind of an announcement. I think he's such a bad. There's nothing. Sort of reminds me of the former president. There's almost nothing the dude's ever done that's been on the up and up, that's had integrity, that's followed through, and the road is long for the lack of integrity. I don't think this Commander thing. Start with that.
I know.
That this is going to have the ending that Roger Goodell is looking for, which is Bezos, pay him $6 billion, get out, and then let the law deal with you. I don't see Dan Snyder as being that kind of fellow.
Well, I think
ever.
There's two things here. Bezos should pay him seven billion, so that way the optics are better for Danny, and also he can't reject that offer. So again, if you're worth $113 billion, an extra billion's not going to break you, right? It's not going to stop him from having the surf and turf versus the chicken at Ruth's Chris when he goes there.
Well, he's going to have a lot of money to go home, right? I mean, here's a guy who didn't have anything. He had a couple of
Nope.
failed businesses in his 20s. He's made a lot of money. He's done everything other than be successful with this project, except he bought it for $1 billion or 900 million. He's going to wind up selling it for $5 billion. So for whatever happens, he is going to have more money when it's over with than he's ever had by a lot. So if he's in love with money, and he is, that would be the cash out. But he's also really in love with Dan Snyder, right? And the ego and all of that. He was in love with the name Redskins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
he wouldn't let that go. So I don't think that's a quick exit. And I find it fascinating that Jim Irsay, to your point, owns the team. He talks about I've been in the league 53 years, right? Daddy gives him the team. Um, well, I mean, this is the arrogance of the people, right? Is that he's won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, and I think you called that the blind squirrel finding the nut on Monday, right?
Sure.
He just hired a guy who has no qualification. He's done this 50 years and still doesn't know better. Bisciotti's owned the team 2 decades and still throwing legitimate media people out that are never going to go away. I'm never, ever, I'm going to have to die to go away. And that's just dumb. That's especially for me. You know what I mean? Creating enemies out of good friends. It's insane. But this is who billionaires are. Look, this week we've been talking about Trump's running for president again. And this maniac that bought Twitter has no idea what he's doing. I mean, right? So billionaires, I remember talking to Joe Foss. I'll drop his name, former Oriole president, when I wrote Peter Principles, which I'm going to re-release at some point when the football season's over. I'm going to clean it up, make sure that it's current and, wherever it is, put some new pictures in for spring training because people are being interested in the Orioles, right? But I remember when I wrote Peter Principles, Joe Foss and I were out having coffee up in Cockeysville, and he said to me, and he's so soft-spoken and so Minnesota, so polite, such a nice man. It's a shame I couldn't really know him when he ran the team. I knew him, but he was forced to have to hate me by Peter, right? So long after he left Peter, he sat down with me to help me with the Peter Principles, and he said, Nestor, I've known a lot of billionaires. They're different people. They don't think like you and me.
Right.
They just don't. And you can never think the way they think unless you sit and dream that you would be impervious to everything.
Sure.
And everybody does everything for you. And I don't know, the last time I really had a conversation with Bisciotti, he doesn't know how to type. He never typed as a kid. So when phones turned to glass and typing became a thing, I think, and probably voice probably helped him a lot, but he never typed. And I thought, how in the world can you be a billionaire and not have an email address? How is that possible? And he's like, I don't have an email just because I'm a billionaire.
Right. Right.
Oh,
there you
okay.
go.
All right. So when Chad Steele makes stupid decisions, like throwing out legitimate media people, he's on a boat in Bimini. He doesn't care.
He doesn't
now,
care.
Jim Irsay cares a lot, right? Jim Irsay cares enough to hire Jeff Saturday, which is even worse. Dan Snyder cares so much that he can't stay away, even when they've made his wife the boss, and he has to accost cheerleaders, and he has to browbeat employees, and he has to be Mr. Snyder. These are different cats, really different cats.
Oh, they are. Again, all that money has to change how one thinks, and they're in one of the most exclusive clubs in the world. There's only 32 of them, right? It's a fantastic, phenomenal club to be in, and all you have to really do is don't screw it up, right? That's the most amazing thing. Stay out of massage parlors, and it just goes on and on, right? Don't accost women. Stay in your lane. Be a good citizen, right?
Be a good citizen. I was getting ready to say, be a good citizen.
Be a good citizen, man.
I've been a good citizen for 53, 54 years. I mean, how hard is it to not break laws and hurt people?
Well, the other piece of it, I would think that the most important thing for a billionaire would be their legacy, right? What happens after they're gone? How do people talk about them?
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell a story I've never told.
Are people reverential or are they differential? Are they going to, praise your name or throw dirt on it after you're gone? And you see guys like Bill Gates giving back a lot of money to charities, and there's billionaires out there. They're going to die broke because they're going to give everything they've ever earned away, which I think is a very good thing.
I think that's what Bisciotti told me in his darkest moments, that he was going to give all his money away, and that's what people around me have told me about him. And
it's the most noble thing he can do.
I remember having a conversation with Bisciotti about Peter Angelos after I had done Free the Birds. And Bisciotti was a big fan of Free the Birds, just so you know. He came several times and said to me, hey, you're doing the right thing there by putting pressure there, that he's got an ego and that he'll want to make this better. And little did we know he was trying as hard as he could all the time, right? Like Peter was trying all along, in the same way that Jim Irsay thinks Jeff Saturday is going to lead him to greatness, right? Like he's really trying. He's doing his best. He's not being malicious. But he said to me, the thing about Peter is he's going to die I can't use the word. It's two words put together, and think of a lollipop. So he said, I don't want to die one of those.
Right, of course not.
And I remember him vividly saying that to me on the elevator coming out of my building when he was in my home, 2007. I don't want to die a lollipop.
Sure.
And I thought to I remember saying that to my wife many times, and my wife's like, "What do you think he's going to be to the Aparicio family after throwing you out of the franchise?"
Yeah.
I will spend the rest of my life calling Steve Bisciotti what he doesn't want to be called. Probably all, let's see, 4 plus 6, all 10 letters, 2 words, ends with an ER. And, but that was his word, not mine. He said, I don't want to die a bad
Understood.
guy.
Understood.
And so whenever I fire off Dear Steve missive, whenever that happens, it's going to be, all right, you said you didn't want to be one of those guys. What am I supposed to say about you?
Right.
What am I supposed to tell? When people come up to me and say, hey, dude, you used to go to the games. You don't go anymore. Why don't you go? And
Uh,
I'm going to say, maybe the owner's a lollipop. I don't know. I mean, he must be. Otherwise, I'd be at the games because I bought tickets for 26 years.
yeah.
So the ownership argument across all of this is fascinating. And I think they control so much more than the media ever gives them credit for, certainly more than John Harbaugh's ever going to say at a podium or Eric DeCosta's ever going to say at a podium. If they're hands-on, this isn't my impression. This is the reality. Steve Bisciotti's very, very hands-on with this franchise right now. He's on the phone all the time with DeCosta, all the time with Harbaugh. He's back in. A couple of years ago, he was a little bit more
Sure.
thinking about selling the team. This is his toy now. I think he's married to it in a way that it defines him. It's what he is now, out on his boat. This is the fun he gets to have as a billionaire. Intimidating media people, not being a community guy. Steve Bisciotti's not a community man. I mean, he didn't live here. So, I mean, my missive is going to come soon that we have out-of-town ownership right now, right? We have John in Nashville. We have Mom and Lou fighting here. And we have Steve Bisciotti, who's never going to live here again. That we used to think about these franchises differently when we gave the money to get the stadiums built, right? And Peter thought about this differently when he bought the team, which is, we're not going to be a branch town. We're going to be locally owned. And I don't know the franchises are ever going to be locally owned again or operate in any way that isn't about DraftKings and FanDuel. I mean, seriously, because that's really where the growth is. The growth isn't in we're going to get 150 a throw or 250 a throw for every football ticket. The growth for all of these things is in the gambling market for them. And they can't even get that right. They can't get calls right when the ball hits the ground and they have a video camera.
Well, interestingly enough, Nestor, the other day I received a survey from the Baltimore Ravens. I hadn't seen one of those in a long, long time. If ever, it was a customer satisfaction, a fan satisfaction survey about do they value me as a customer.
Did you fill it out?
I filled it out honestly. I did. I filled it out
and
honestly.
I wish you would have taken a picture of it and we could have talked about it. I mean, I would love to do a segment.
I
would love to do a segment on
send it back in, but again, I was honest, and I wrote notes in there, and I expressed my dissatisfaction about the half-empty stadium and how would we fail to hold serve against out-of-town teams, and I'm tired of sitting Bills fans and Browns fans in seats that used to be covered with purple fans. So yeah, I mean, I was very honest about assessing how I think the team feels about me and how I feel about the team at this time. And it starts off like, you've been a season ticket holder since when? So, I hit the bar and it's slow, and it's 1996, man. I've been sitting in my seat since 1996. And my dad and I got arrested. So we had season tickets to the Colts. I've been a fan for a long, 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 long time, just like you.
Well, and they don't care about you, and you know that, right? So even if you fill the survey out, that's to make you think they care about you, right? I mean, I don't. Who's going to read that survey and who's going to do anything about it? And if you wrote in there, I really pissed my buddy Ness, and my business partner Nestor's been thrown around like a piece of trash out in front of everybody. So if you write that in the survey, does anybody really read that? I don't.
I may get a letter saying my tickets have been revoked, so I don't know. I may join you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get thrown off of Twitter at some point. If I had permission to share on your end, I would show you that picture I have of me in the upper deck with my wife back on the Joe Flacco night when he got speared by Kiko Alonso. You remember that, right?
Sure.
That Dolphins night. Sure. I have this picture of like nothing but Dolphins fans around me in my section and empty seats everywhere in the distance.
Right.
And it was in the first quarter of the game because the Dolphins lost the game like 35-0. I mean, they were only loud for about the first 6 minutes. Once the score was like 14-0, they kind of went away. But I snapped this picture of all of these New Jersey cops who came down in Dolphins gear,
Sure.
all of them, and I still look at that as sort of. I mean, I'll never sit in those seats again, obviously, right? I mean, that was the beginning of the end for me. That was the night Wild Bill threw the cooler off the deck. You know, I don't know what to say, but it never got normal again. It never, my section and that stadium has never been normal again in the last 5.5 years. And I mean normal, like rocking. Now, would it be for an AFC championship game against the Chiefs? I guess so. But I also guess that 3,000 Chiefs fans or 5,000 Chiefs fans would figure out how to get into a championship game.
Of course.
Because the Ravens fans don't control all the tickets. I mean, back in 2004, Minder had 3,000 seats behind behind the goalpost downstairs, but we never had visiting fans because people like you and I own the tickets, and we took our kids, our wives, our neighbors, our clients, our friends, our relatives to the game, and we would never have thought about leaving a seat empty. We would have booed the no-shows, right? Like that's the kind of town we were. I don't know if we're going to become that kind of town again.
Old school Ravens fans would have ate their tickets versus selling them to a Steelers fan or a Browns fan or a Bengals fan. It would have old school Ravens fans would have never sold their tickets at any price to anybody else but another Ravens fan.
Dennis, I had tickets for years and years and years, and you know that. We've been friends a long time. And had you asked Steve Hennessy or Peter DeLutis or any of my staff here when they worked for me, hey, I need a couple tickets for the game on Sunday, I would say, are you a Ravens fan?
Same thing with me.
Even if you're a Ravens fan and your cousin's in town from Cleveland, don't bring him into my section.
100%.
Just don't bring him into my section.
100%.
Like it just won't go well. It won't go well for me. It won't go well for the people around us. It's just that's the reason I sold those tickets down in front.
You and I have family members that we wouldn't allow to sit in our Ravens seats. That were
my wife when the Patriots would play here. She'd make her dad and her sister wear Raven stuff because, like, I'm like, you can't.
100%.
Her father came down one year. He's a Patriot fan. He didn't wear any colors, but he sat in the stands with. He wore black, But I said he had a little Patriot hat in his shirt or whatever.
You had rules.
To kid around with me. Yeah, it's just decorum. You're going to come into my house, take your shoes off.
Yeah, because you sit with the same people around you. You make friends with the people around you, and you don't want them looking at you differently because you brought somebody else from that's going to root for the opposing team wearing their colors in your seats, in your section.
Did you happen to hear the piece with my buddy Micah Buckdahl about a month ago from Philadelphia? Micah is a Philadelphia lawyer. You can go look it up. Micah Buckdahl, B-U-C-H-D, B-U-C-H-D-A-H-L. Look him up online. He's a Philadelphia lawyer. He's from Owings Mills, from Baltimore. I've known him since 1984. He was the assistant PR director of the Washington Capitals. He gave me a credential. He joked about, I always happily gave you, I would still credential you. He's let me know. So he's been in Philly for 30 years. He ran an MISL team. He was the president of the New York Arrows in Long Island, I believe, in the late 80s, back in the day. So he's lived in Philadelphia forever. His son is a P1 hardcore Eagles, Phillies, Sixers. They have season tickets. He's always taking pictures of him and his boy. I still think his boy's like 6 years old. His boy's like 14 or 15 now, right? I have pictures with them at the Super Bowl in Minnesota. He brought his boy out to Minnesota, all their Eagles gear and all that. Monday night, he has a tradition every year. He has a buddy from D.C. that when the Eagles play the Washington football, whatever they're calling themselves, his buddy comes to the game. And of course they lost, right, on Monday night. And he took a picture of him and his buddy up in the stage. He's like, I brought this guy every year, and all anybody wants to know is where my kid is, because they're used to seeing my kid. They want to know who the guy in the burgundy hat is.
Right.
And now we lost, and it's my fault because I brought this guy. And I'm thinking, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, I miss that. I miss that from that's the way 513 was. 513 was, hey, where's Peter and Barbara? They're not in their, they're on vacation this week. Okay. Well, at least they gave the seats to you, and they didn't put the seats online, try to make money off them.
Right.
But
you know what? But see, when fans perceive the teams being apathetic, then they become apathetic. All of a sudden, it's not a big deal to put them online. All of a sudden,
I can promise you that the Ravens don't care about you.
No,
because they didn't care about me.
100%. That's what I'm
I
saying
can
to you. It
promise
makes
you
it
they don't care
easier.
about you.
It makes it easier to sell your tickets when you perceive that the team doesn't care about you. It becomes a business to them. It also becomes a business to you, and you're going to monetize that seat, or you're going to sell it, or you're going to give it up.
All I know is I never ever thought of it in those terms until after that night with Kiko Alonso. I started eating tickets really, really regularly. I never ate Orioles tickets because I never bought a season ticket.
Right.
And I'm not proud of never having
Oh,
bought an Orioles season ticket. I bought plenty of Orioles tickets across
look,
time, but I was not a 13 game Sunday plan holder. I never felt like I needed to be that guy. If I wanted to go to the game, I went to the game whenever I wanted to go to the game.
see, here's one thing. You just triggered a thought about that Ravens survey I took the other day. In the 100 questions they asked, one of
They
the
asked
last,
100 questions?
it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot.
You
It was,
do
it,
surveys at Coons for. That's a lot of
it was,
questions,
well,
dude.
they're meaningful to us, and I don't know how meaningful it will be to the Baltimore Ravens, but the one question, and maybe this was the most important question hidden in that in the whole context, was, do you intend to renew your PSLs next year? So to me, it was really a lot of fluff. And that was the biggest takeaway, was they want to know my intention about renewing next year. So that tells me they're having trouble with PSLs. They're having trouble selling out. They're having trouble with people renewing year after year.
Because you know why they're having trouble? And I promise you this, I'm on Facebook. I have black friends, white friends, in-town friends, out-of-town friends. There is never a week where I don't see somebody begging to get rid of their tickets.
Right.
Hey, I've got
you,
2 tickets.
You said there were $20 a pop for the last home game, right? You saw them on whatever.
They were $20
That's
at
insane.
10:30 in the morning.
That's insane.
They will be. I don't know what they'll be this week, but they won't be face value. They're
They
never.
You're
they're
100%.
never ever worth $125 ever.
No. There'll be deals after. You know what? I'm going to go to the game. I may look to see if I can upgrade my tickets. Maybe I can get a suite or something like that. I don't know. Get out of the cold.
Tickets right now I can click are $50 in the upper deck.
Wow.
Now these aren't great. They're up high, but that's it's $50 to get into the game right now on my app, which is half of what I would have paid had Chad Steele not thrown me out and I bought my season.
So the
but I never had any problem buying my tickets and sitting in them. I owned 4. I actually owned 6 at one point. And after the Wembley knee, and a little bit before that, when Flacco was faltering, they say 5 years for the Super Bowl. We won the Super Bowl in 13. By like 15, 16, 17, people were getting a little more antsy. Then Wembley happened. And then after that, I had this phenomenon every week of looking back and seeing the 2 seats empty that I paid for.
Right.
And that happened again and again and again and again. And then then we had the year where all the weather was terrible. Was that 18 or 19 where 6 out of the 8 games were just awful conditions to sit in, and then the plague happened, and then Kevin Byrne retired, and I'll probably never sit in stadium again. I mean, I guess I don't know.
So if you can buy a ticket for $50, right, and sit anywhere you want to, because it's going to be half empty again, why buy a PSL? You're not subjected to paying full price for those god awful preseason tickets, right? And you can go to any game you want to at your choosing, for half price or for a third of the value of the ticket. So why should make the argument as to why someone should have the cost of the PSL and the burden of the PSL?
I can't justify it. And I guess what I'm saying is when I see all these tickets for sale out online and I see them begging me to buy primary tickets, right? I mean, they beg me for 6 months on my Facebook page, on my Twitter page. I get ads all the time. Get your single individual game tickets now, right? Like none of that existed back when the Modell family owned the team. That wasn't a problem, but it doesn't keep Steve Bisciotti up at night. He doesn't care. He's a billionaire, which we've taken the story all the way around, which is what does Steve Bisciotti care about? He cares about what bottle of wine he's drinking during the game, and he cares that they win. He doesn't even care how they win, whether they cheat to win, whether their running back punches his wife in an elevator, who OD'd last. Doesn't care about any of that. He needs to win. And you know what he really needs to do now is have a championship game here and win a Super Bowl, because you know what? No matter what you said on that survey, Dennis, if we start winning, you'll come back. Well, we win, even if you said, I'm on the fence about my PSL on question 99 or whatever question that was. Yeah, maybe. What did you say about the PSL? Did you say maybe?
I said I would. No, I said I'm a
Oh,
fan. I
okay.
mean, I answered it honestly. I did. I gave honest answers to the questions. I wasn't trying to trick him. Whatever. I don't want to get a phone call. Wasn't my intention. But I think it speaks volumes when a team is 6-3, a 2-touchdown favorite against a patsy coming off of a long bye, and you can buy tickets for $50 and get into the stadium. I think it says a
Now,
lot. It speaks
now
volumes.
my wife did come in the other day, and she's like, it's going to be like 38 or 40 at game time.
Yep.
So it's going to be men there. That's
Okay.
what happens when this happens.
Okay.
Men go to. I think it's probably gotten more male dominated
How many?
as
But how many men?
families have stopped going and as PSL owners have
Right.
become open purple seats, right?
How many men? That's the question. And you lose that 12th man advantage. You lose that home field advantage when you have situations like these.
There's no way that people here can get baked up for the Carolina Panthers. You
But
know
it's
what I
not
mean?
about that. But if you're a fan though, you've been without football here for a couple of weeks, right? 3 weeks. I don't know how long it's been since we went to the stadium, but you're jonesing for some football, right? And you got a great new middle linebacker, and you got great storylines, and you got Baker Mayfield playing for them. Look, we should go there and handle business at the stadium. But if you're a fan though, back in the day, we didn't care who the opponent was, whether we were favorites or underdogs. You just went to the stadium. It was an event. You planned your week around Ravens football games back then.
You planned your menu around it, right? I mean,
back in 2000 and even in 2012, the passion was there. Where's that passion now?
that's for them to figure out with their
Okay.
survey.
Okay.
They don't need me. Cassie Calvert will help you with that.
Okay.
And ravensmedia.com. They'll
go.
help. And the 3 reporters from 105.7 that are now sitting in my seats.
It's a travesty.
No,
All right,
it's being 54 and being alive in America in
There you
2022.
go. There you go.
I still have my pen. It's just I don't have my sword.
All right, Nestor. I appreciate you as always. Appreciate your time and your insight. Always fun having you on.
Oh, as Ralph Mouth once said, I still got it.
Yes, you do. 1,000%. So there he goes, Nestor J. Aparicio here at 1570 AM WNST. We'll take a quick break and come back right after this.